Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. The weekend's only just begun, and already we've had an absolutely tremendous battle between BEKTEMIR MELIKUZIEV and the previously undefeated Darius Fulghum. It was won by Melikuziev on a unanimous decision, very close cards, 114, 112 from all three judges. Sounds about right. But a tremendous battle. This was over in Vegas. And Melikuziev, Bek the Bully, as he calls himself, he moved to 16 wins with 10 KOs, 1 defeat. The defeat was avenged. It was to Gabe Rosado back in 2021. He just got caught coming in, being reckless, and Gabe chinned him. He was winning the fight. I think Rosado was down in the first round. And then a couple of years later, he won a unanimous 10-round decision. I think that was Gabe's last fight. But Melikuziev is coming on, but definitely coming on in terms of technique, because this was a surprising performance, the manner in which he got his work done, at least for the first five rounds, 6 rounds. Fulghum is 28 years old. He's a 6'1" guy from, I think he's from Houston, Texas, they said. And he came in undefeated with 14 wins, 12 KOs. All right. And he hadn't really beaten anyone great, a couple of maybe B- level fighters. But, he hadn't fought what you'd call no-hopers. There was a bit of substance to his record. But he was clearly moving up to fight Melikuziev. And with the big knockout ratio, you'd think, okay, Melikuziev is going to have to be on his P's and Q's. He doesn't want to get caught like he did against Rosado. And Melikuziev, so far, we've seen him to be a very sort of come-forward, rampaging, tough, gritty fighter who just likes to walk in, throwing enormous punches. Well, surprisingly, considering Fulghum's 6'1" and Melikuziev is 5'10", 5'9", 5'10", surprisingly, he boxed, and he boxed really quite intelligently against the taller, thinner guy. And Fulghum, he probably knew Fulghum was going to come at him, because Fulghum has that knockout ratio, and he wants to. He said before the fight, when he was interviewed, he said, I'm going to make a statement, and that normally implies that someone's coming to try to knock you out. And Fulghum, with his knockout record, he's used to knocking people out. So Melikuziev, instead of recklessly going in, was, he was throwing punches, but he was moving on the back foot. And there were little cameos where it looked like he was running even. When have you ever seen that from Bek the Bully? But Fulghum kept going forward, and was being countered and was being clocked. And there were, in the first 3 rounds, maybe there were some really nice, maybe 2 or 3 really hefty body punches, left hooks from Melikuziev. Melikuziev's a southpaw. I say left hooks, they were probably straight lefts to the body, but there was some real ring IQ there that I hadn't seen from Bek before. Now, Fulghum clearly wasn't throwing enough punches. He was headhunting too much. He was looking to land the big wallop, instead of doing things in a little bit more of an intelligent manner. And the penny sort of seemed to drop after about 4 rounds, because he suddenly started to surge forward with more intent, but let his hands go as he was doing so. And not all the punches were landing, but and enough were to make Melikuziev a little bit uncomfortable. Fulghum himself began to land body punches, some nice body punches, and one of the early on body punches did visibly shake Melikuziev. Melikuziev was shaken. I wouldn't say really badly hurt, but definitely shaken a couple of times in this fight. And in fact, the referee ended up warning him for holding too much. Melikuziev was, I would say he didn't like the pressure. Yes, he'd been boxing on the back foot, but the pressure was making him fight in a style and at a pace that he didn't particularly like. So Fulghum was beginning to, his punch output was vastly increased. He was beginning to pay dividends, and in fact, one uppercut unnosed. Is that a word? Unnosed Melikuziev, because all the blood was suddenly coming out of him, and it was suddenly you're thinking, okay, the pendulum swinging here. Well, with the busted up nose, it wasn't broken, I don't think, but it was visible that it was definitely a signpost of the good work that Fulghum was doing. And then, like I say, Melikuziev was holding quite a lot. So this persisted despite a warning from the referee, and in the end, the ref lost patience and took a point off Melikuziev. Well, Melikuziev didn't seem that bothered. It was like, okay, in desperate times, we've got to do desperate measures. And I'm not saying that he was in desperate trouble, because he wasn't, but the tide of the fight was turning. And I think Melikuziev, with his experience, sensed that. And as a result, I think he had to make his own adjustments, which he did, because he began to not box on the back foot a bit more, exchange far more with Fulghum. And again, body work was good. Fulghum, 3 inches taller, rangier, body punches were going to have an effect. And Melikuziev began to have, again, the pendulum swung the other way. I mean, as with all great fights, and this was, if it wasn't a great fight, it was a very, very good one. The pendulum always swings both ways. And then I think for the last, well, actually, yeah, like I say, Melikuziev had a point taken off in the 7th. I think for the last 4, maybe 5 rounds, it was pretty much a slugfest. And it was noticeable that Melikuziev, perhaps because of his greater experience, of doing the distance. I mean, he won a split decision over David Stevens, who had a 14-1 record. That was back end of last year. And that was a 12-rounder. So I think that those 12 rounds set him in good stead, because he's another one who, has been knocking people out early. But the recent experience of doing 12 probably helped him out in this fight. And then having had a point taken off in the final round, Melikuziev got the point back, because very early in the round he landed I think it was a backhand. It was a backhand left to the body, and then he switched it up to the head, and Fulghum hit the floor for the first time in his career. He wasn't badly hurt. It was a legitimate knockdown. It wasn't a flash knockdown, but Fulghum got up. He seemed, a bit perturbed, but nothing major. He didn't panic at all. And then Bek sort of chased him around the ring. I would say that was one of the most dominant rounds for Melikuziev. And then we got to the judging. All 3 judges had the same 114, 112, which sounds about right, like I say. And it's good to see 3 judges agreeing, because there was no controversy in this fight. But it was also a fight where there didn't seem to be any real losers. I mean, I know Fulghum lost for the first time, which is obviously a setback in anyone's career, but he's a threat. He needs to tighten up his defence. He stands a bit too upright. But then you could say the same defensively about Melikuziev. And although Melikuziev did show a higher ring IQ and boxed very well in the first 4 rounds, it really boxed surprisingly. His style, he's adjusted his style very well. Nevertheless, he can be hit too. So these guys, they're super middleweights. And we know who rules the roost at super middleweight at the moment. I suppose if Bud Crawford beats Canelo, that could change. But yeah, good fight. Good fight. And who would turn down a rematch? No one. Both these guys would probably want a rematch. No fan who's seen this will turn it down. It was a very, very good fight indeed. So go and have a look. It was on DAZN. Like I say, it was from Vegas. It was in the early hours of the morning, UK time, on Saturday, what is it today? The 31st of May, 2025. So go and have a look. You will not be disappointed, and let me know what you think. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. As always, please subscribe to the channel if you're new and hit the like button, and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Much appreciated, as always. Enjoy the fight. I'll catch you later. Bye for now.